Okay, so I never realized how much work it is going to be to convert this 71 Corvette from an automatic to a 4-speed. When I decided I was going to keep the car, I want a car with a 4-speed. And I bought this car originally to do a little work on it and sell it. Well, I got into it and realized it's such a nice car, I decided to keep it. So since I'm keeping it, I want it the way I want it, which is with a 4-speed. Okay, so I got a hold of Corvette Generation. They will sell you a 4-speed kit. It involves some used parts, some new parts. The transmission's original, new. They go through it, make sure everything's good, and replace anything that's bad in it. And then you get the clutch, pressure plate, flywheel, all that stuff. You get the bell housing, the fork, all the linkages for it, everything like that. They will provide you with the factory original 4-speed shifter if that's what you want. I wanted a Hurst shifter, so basically I've got the transmission from them and everything else except the shifter, and I bought that from Jegs. But anyway, there's a lot of little things when you're doing this to consider. The first thing is, what automatic do you have? I had a Turbo 400, so I could switch out to this Muncie 4-speed and use the same drive shaft again. It's the same length. If you have a Turbo 350 in your car, then you have to use a different length drive shaft. I don't remember, it's like an inch or two shorter or longer. I don't remember which way it goes. I'm assuming it'd be longer because I would think a Turbo 350 would be a little shorter than a 400. I don't know, I've never really measured them to see. To me, they kind of look the same, but I'm thinking the 400 had to be a little beefier, so maybe it's a little bit longer. But anyway, fortunately I had the 400, so I didn't have to change my drive shaft, but I went in and put new U-joints in my drive shaft while I was waiting to get the 4-speed kit in. And the drive shaft originally took Spicer 1330 U-joints in both ends. Okay, I didn't think too much about it. I didn't even bother to check when I got the 4-speed kit in. It had the yoke and the transmission and everything. I didn't even measure it. I got it all put in. I went to connect up the drive shaft to the transmission, and that's when I realized that the yoke on the 4-speed transmission has a smaller spread for the caps on the U-joint than what the drive shaft has. So fortunately, Spicer makes a U-joint that goes from a 1330, which is what the drive shaft is, down to a 1310, which is what the yoke for the transmission is. So I ordered a U-joint. That was the easiest, simplest solution. I mean, I could have got a different yoke for the drive shaft, cut it out, welded it back in, lined it up, and used a 1310 U-joint on that end of the drive shaft, or I could have tried to find a yoke that maybe had a 1330 spread on it that went into the yoke that went into the transmission. But for me, the simple solution was get a U-joint that's made that way, so you don't have to modify anything else. So that's what I did. So I got to pull the drive shaft back out, which is no big deal. It is kind of a pain, and I'll videotape that. So much of the stuff I've done on the car, and that's why I'm doing this video here, so much of the stuff I've done on the car I didn't videotape, and I wish I would have, because as I was doing it, I didn't realize how much work was involved. One of the things that you have to do on your car, at least on my car I had to, I don't know if all cars are that way, but there's a bracket that goes on the frame rail underneath the master cylinder for the Z-bar, which is the bar that connects the clutch pedal rod to the rod that goes to your yoke on your bell housing for the throwout bearing. on the engine, there's a threaded hole right below where your dipstick goes in that you screw this. It's a fastener that's got threads on one end and it's got a ball on the other end. The end of that Z-bar, it's a tube, and it goes over that fastener on the engine. On the other end, it's got a swivel ball mounted in it with a thread coming out that's got two flats on it that goes in a slot in this bracket that gets welded to your frame. And it took a little bit of figuring to figure out where exactly to put that bracket. I mean, there's no instructions, no directions or dimensions, anything that I can find. You might be able to get something from the factory archive somehow. But the simplest way I did it was I measured from the center of my motor mount, excuse me, on the engine back to the center line of that threaded hole for that stud. And then I measured from the center of the motor mount bracket on the frame back that distance and marked it on the frame. And then when I picked up my 4-speed kit from Corvette Generation, I went out in their yard and he had a frame there out of a 4-speed that was, everything was exposed, it was just a frame. So I was able to get a measurement from the face of that bracket over to the opposite frame rail. There was a hole, so I could reference from that hole to get the right distance and everything front to back, and I measured from it to the face of that plate. So I knew for sure what that dimension was, but there was really no good way at that point to measure. At the time, I didn't think about measuring from the motor mount bracket, but so I had that measurement. That was a different measurement that was factory. And so I measured from the engine block to the motor mount, mounting plate on the engine block, and I got a dimension, and I welded that bracket in, and surprisingly, when I put the motor in, put that Z-bar in, it was perfect. I mean, it looks like maybe I could have been a little further out on the car, because that Z-bar went up further on that ball than what I expected it to, but it's still fine. I mean, it works fine, it doesn't hit anything, and it does what it needs to do. But those are the kind of things I wish I would have videotaped, because that's something that, you know, I couldn't learn out of a book. I had to just do it and figure out how to get my measurements. So, you know, it was within reason with the location. And then the bell housing, the starter I had on my engine, it was a brand new starter, and the bell housing was made for the smaller snouts starters, or one of those, you can buy those high torque starters that just have the aluminum plate and a little gear sticking out, doesn't have the snout on it. And I thought, well, I have a brand new starter, I hate to just not use that and have to buy another new starter. So I decided I modified the bell housing. I put it up in the mill and I bored out the diameter of the snout down deep enough into the bell housing so that my starter would work. And it doesn't hurt anything. I mean, it doesn't hurt the strength of the bell housing or anything like that. It does take away the value of that bell housing because it's an original bell housing, but I don't really care. I mean, I'm not building this car to make $1 million or anything, and I'm not building it to make it completely original. It's not original. It's not the original engine. It's not the original transmission. So it doesn't matter to me. I'm building it the way I want it so I can enjoy the car. If somebody gets it after me when I'm done with it, they can do whatever they want with it. So anyway, I modified that. That took a little bit of work, and I didn't videotape any of that, and I kind of wish I would have, because after doing it, and at the time I was just wanting to get it done, so after getting it done, I thought, God, I wish I would have videotaped. Anyway, hindsight. I even actually contemplating pulling the engine back out and starting back again and just showing the steps, but after putting the engine in, and I've got everything hooked up, all the wiring, everything, it's done. So I'm not going to pull it back out. But anyway, what I'm kind of hoping is maybe I can do another short video and do a diagram and explain what I had to do, at least to get the information out there. Because if anybody's contemplating putting a 4-speed transmission in a Corvette, I don't have a problem recommending doing that. I mean, if that's what you want, by all means do it. If I had to do it over again, though, I don't know if I would have done it. I think I maybe would have put this car back together with the automatic in it, sold it, and bought something else with a 4-speed already in it. But now that's done, I'm glad I did it. So we're gonna push forward. So anyway, my next little short video here is gonna be pulling the drive shaft out, replacing that U joint, putting it back in, and hooking it up. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me.